Welcome back. Today we are moving into learning all about factor one, which is calories. And sadly, far too many people still believe that this is the only thing that impacts body shape and size. And I want you to see, of course, across the entirety of this course that there are 9 factors. This is just one of them. So yes, we can't eat like little piglets and expect it all to fall into place. Of course, that's the case. But there is just so much more to our body shape and size than this calorie equation. So let's take a look at where this whole concept of calories originated from. As you've heard me say, it was first discovered in 1918 and it was game-changing at the time. We learnt that humans had a basic level of energy that was required of them. But think about life back then. There was no processed food, there weren't any supermarkets. Life was different in so many ways. Now, where this whole concept of a basic need for energy to maintain human life, where that is still relevant today is in the emergency department of a hospital. I know because I've worked in one. And if someone very sadly is in a coma, having had a motor vehicle accident, for example, then there is no better way to calculate what they require to be fed, usually through a tube, to keep their life going. So it still has relevance in that area, but beyond that, we've completely outgrown it, and there are a number of reasons why. Number one, this whole concept of calories does not allow for us to consider the metabolic consequences of where those calories have come from. So what that means is, for example, when you eat carbohydrates, it leads the human body to make insulin. And as you'll see later in the course, insulin is a fat storage hormone. So the metabolic consequence of consuming X amount of calories from carbohydrates is insulin production, which has a separate signaling mission inside the body. When we consume protein, some of the breakdown products of protein are things like urea and ammonia, and the body is perfectly capable of dealing with those, of breaking them down and eliminating them. But it's crazy to think that we can eat an endless amount of protein and for there not to be consequences to that. So, for example, if our body's detoxification mechanisms aren't working optimally, then our body's ability to detoxify and therefore eliminate urea and ammonia can be compromised. So there are consequences on other body systems like the liver, our major detoxification organ, when we consume too much of that. But interestingly, when we consume dietary fat, there isn't a metabolic consequence from that. You simply get the energy, the calories from that. So let's look into this further. The macronutrients, that's where we get our energy from, and we measure energy as calories. So we get our energy from macronutrients, and our macronutrients are carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. Technically, alcohol is a macronutrient, but I can't bring myself to say alcohol and nutrient in the same sentence because maybe it nourishes our soul on the odd occasion, but that's about it. But essentially, we get our macronutrients across the day from protein, carbohydrates, and fats, and they provide us with energy, and we measure that energy as calories. The metric way to measure it is as kilojoules. So my vernacular, my language patterns are always around calories because that was how I was educated. So carbohydrates and protein give us roughly 4 calories per gram. Alcohol gives us 7 calories per gram and fat gives us 9 calories per gram. So you can see just in the way that I've described that it's not surprising when the whole world became obsessed with this idea of counting calories that they thought it was going to be a good idea to cut fat right back or to cut it out. So it was through the low-fat era where everyone was educated to believe that fat was the enemy. It was through that period that the waistlines of the Western world got bigger than ever before. And no one sat back and said, well, there's now a fast food outlet on every second corner. There's so much processed food available to everyone in the supermarket. There's so much convenience food with very concentrated sources of refined carbohydrates available to us now, really for the first time in human history. No one sat back and said that. The powers that be sat back and said, well, it must be the carbs that are the enemy. So let's roll around these high protein diets again. They're nothing new. They were first released in the 70s. And for those of you who have been around long enough to remember, you'll notice that nutrition information moves in about 30-year cycles. So it's incredibly important to not get caught up in the fads. It's incredibly important that you pay attention to how your own body responds to what you give it. But we know that the human body has all of the equipment inside of it, i.e. the digestive system enzymes required to break down whole real food. All of that's inside you. So again, it's why I bring you back to my message of we want to base how we eat on whole and real food, because your body has all the equipment to break that down. So that's the macronutrient story. The micronutrient story, the micronutrients are all of our vitamins and minerals, and as you now understand, they are what keep us alive. We get them from our whole real food, we digest our food, and then those nutrients move across into the blood, and it's how we are nourished. So it's such a critical process to make sure we have plenty of those nutrients going in. So I want you to think about, for example, an avocado. It's very rich in fat, so therefore it has a lot of calories compared to something that has a high water content. So when an avocado, because it's got all of that fat in it, I don't need you to think about the calories in the avocado. I want you to think about the fact that there are 19 different nutrients in an avocado. And the nutrients are what then give your biochemical pathways the fire they need to fire and for everything to run optimally inside your body. It's about nourishment. It's important at this stage in our journey together that we talk about alcohol, because yes, it contains 7 calories per gram, so it is a source of calories that we just don't need, but it also has a lot of other ramifications in our life. So alcohol cannot be eliminated by the human body. It must be changed into another substance called acetaldehyde before it can then be eliminated. It's the acetaldehyde that we get rid of. And it's the acetaldehyde that actually accumulates in the body and can give people a headache the day after they've had too much to drink, for example. So it's very, very important that you recognize that alcohol isn't just a source of calories. It asks the liver to do a whole host of detoxification work, which is something that you'll understand a little bit later into the course. Detoxification in a nutshell is a change process where the body takes something that if it was going to accumulate it would be harmful to you. It changes it into something less harmful so you can then get rid of it. And most certainly alcohol is something that if it does accumulate in the body, it can be incredibly harmful to you. It also has a ripple effect on your next day, because if you do feel lousy, it can lead you to make food choices just to try to pick yourself up, because often you're tired, you're fatigued, and so you're looking for a quick fix of energy. So often highly processed, convenient food that aren't at all nourishing, that don't contain very many nutrients. They're often very high in refined sugars, again, which do nothing for what we're wanting to achieve across this course or our long-term health and longevity. We often make those poorer choices when we're not feeling our best. So the ripple effect of consuming alcohol can be lousy. It's important to identify, if you drink every day, it's important to identify why you do that. So if you notice that you can't wait to have a glass of wine, for example, or any kind of alcoholic drink the minute you walk through the door, you want to work out why that is. And what I've found from working with people for such a long time is that they're actually thirsty and hungry when they first walked in the door, not to mention usually a bit stressed. So the first thing to do is have a handful of nuts and then have a great big glass of water. So you want to make sure that both your thirst is quenched and you've had some food go in, and then work out if you still feel like drinking. That can offer some insight to show you that you're probably thirsty and hungry when you first get home. The thing is, when we feel like alcohol is the only way we have to relax, it can be a story that we're telling ourselves and almost an excuse to consume it. What I've found again is that quite often people love the ritual that they undertake while they have that drink. It's often the only time of the day that they give themselves permission to sit down, and you can do that with any drink you pour yourself. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. It's often the time in the day when you might connect with the person you love the most in the world, and again, we link it to the consumption of alcohol when it's really the conversation that we treasure so much. So again, you can pour yourself a glass of anything and still sit down and have those lovely conversations. If it's a time in your day when you want the alcoholic drink, if it's a time in your day where your household is really busy and maybe little humans have a lot of needs at that time in your day, and so you're trying to do it to distract yourself from that, I want to encourage you to not distract yourself from that, because the process through which we go at that time of day can make all the difference to the outcomes to this course. So rather than trying to numb your feelings and the stress that you feel, I will give you more and more tips as we move through this, but breathe through it. Just recognize that it's a time in the day when Perhaps a lot of people need something from you. And if you can shift it to, instead of seeing it as stressful, to aren't I so fortunate to have people who love me and who I can care for, it can just help the transition away from feeling like you need to drink. So I'm suggesting right now that if alcohol is a regular part of your life, it needs to stop, not just because of the calories that it's giving you, but also because of the metabolic consequences of what it asks for our liver, and then the ripple effect that it can drive on our food choices then for the next day, for example. So a very big message out of today for you is to stop focusing on counting calories. In fact, if you do that, I'm going to tell you right now to stop. And I want you to just think about nutrients. Think about the nutrients in a head of broccoli. You don't just get vitamins and minerals, for example. You get all sorts of other, what I call phytochemicals, phyto meaning plants. They're nutrients that are unique to plants. Sulforaphane is one of them. It's an extraordinary compound that actually helps support the detoxification mechanisms in the body. It's been shown to be incredibly important for women to have healthy breasts. So it's about thinking beyond calories. In fact, that's the thinking that I want to stop right here and right now for the rest of this course. So just like I don't want you to weigh yourself, I don't want you to count calories. It is all about nourishing your body and giving the cells of your body and the biochemical pathways of your body what they need to function optimally, because that is where amazing health and energy comes from. And as you now understand, when we are healthy, we lose weight.